Romancelvania. 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 Romancelvania.
I'm here with Amanda Gardner of the Deep End Games. So excited to have you on the show. And what a
Hey.
fun aesthetic you have. There's nature, but also like neon.
You
There's like
know,
smiles and spookiness. It's the perfect mix for what you're going for, because you've been designing a game along with
yes,
your co-designer and partner in life, Bill,
yes.
called Romancelvania.
Mm-hmm. And it's
So,
exactly what it sounds like.
but how? How did you do it? Because I've been playing Castlevania games for a long time, and there's a lot of different Castlevania-esque games out
Mm,
there. Dead Cells is doing a DLC
yes.
with
The
Castlevania. It looks
day
great.
before we release.
I know. I was wondering. I wanted to get to how that
Yeah.
must have felt. But I've never seen one successfully integrate the romance angle into it. I
Yeah.
know the people who made this game Monster Prom that did really well. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought it was brilliant that you did this, but I was wondering about the challenge of actually marrying these two genres together,
So
romance and Castlevania.
it's kind of funny because it came together so organically for us. And so Bill and I have been together 22 years. Very long time. And every year we play Symphony of the Night on Halloween, like at Halloween time. It's like a ritual, right? One
Of
could
the
say.
night.
Right, of the night. And so one time we were playing a few years ago, and Bill kind of chuckled because we were in this area where a lot of the enemies were Salem witches, and we live near Salem. We're like, what's Dracula doing with Salem witches in the house? I'm like, what are all these monsters doing here? And Bill was kind of just like, maybe they're having a dance, like maybe they're having like a good time, maybe it's a party. And then he just goes, Romancelvania. And I just like my jaw dropped. And I said, take my money. Like, we were working on a different project. We were like deep in development in a different project. And like just that word, Romancelvania, captured our imagination. And whenever we would hang out with dev friends, we'd be like, hey, can we just like say a word to you? And they're like, yeah. And we're like, Romancelvania. And they're like, tell me more. And we ended up getting this amazing team because everybody was like, whatever this is, like we will help define it. Like we're going to make this happen. And it just works for us. So little background about our studio. So my husband Bill was the lead designer on BioShock and the design director on BioShock Infinite. So he comes from the AAA space. And I am a writer, and I wrote a number of romance novels. I wrote a number of urban fantasy novels. And, you know, when Irrational closed, you know, Bill had this idea, like the seedling of an idea for a game, and it ended up being Perception. And he was like, "You write it," and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" Like, you know, we've been creative partners in many ways, but I've never written a game. I write novels.
Mm.
But Perception just kind of came together, and we had so much fun making that. But I love horror, but I do comedy and I do
Mm.
romance, and like those are more, you know, my wheelhouse. And so when the opportunity to work on Romancelvania came about, it was I was writing, I was off and running like immediately because I get these genres so well. And Bill with the gameplay, me with the silliness and the story and the romance, it just works, man.
And the fact that you felt it from the start is like almost romantic. Like the way you
Yeah.
describe it, you fell in love, you're already in love with Bill. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's certainly how it
Yes.
sounds. And then you fell in love together with this thing that just made sense to both of you, just
Oh my
clicked.
God. It was a full body hell yes. Like it was just so natural. There was no question. It was just like, no, that's what we're doing. And you know, we sort of had to plod along on this other project for a few weeks, but until we really said, you know, what are we doing here? Like it was a cool idea. And like one day we may go back to this other thing that we were working on, but we were just like, if you had to work on something and show up every day and like bring it was just no question. We
Yeah.
and I have to say every single day of development has been has been a joy because it's so funny and it's so much fun, and it's just it's definitely the right thing for us in our studio.
So exciting. And you've been working on it for, I think I should know this because one of the first episodes of this show, we
Yeah.
plugged your Kickstarter just because we were excited about it.
Thank you.
And oh, of course. And our show has been around for 2.5 years. So has it been about 2.5 years you've been
Yeah, it's
working
been
on it?
about 3 years. Yeah,
Wow.
it really exciting to be able to really, start talking about it and, seeing people play it soon. And it's just a joy because we're kind of like lighthearted people.
Mm.
And to bring a game that has so much just like joy and silliness and love, right now I think we need it.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, because 2.5 years ago things were weird, but we didn't
Yeah.
know they were going to be like this 2.5 years later, 3 years later.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the way you describe the game, lighthearted, fun, but it's monsters. It's
Yeah.
it's spooky stuff. It's Castlevania. There's not a Belmont. That would be beyond
Yeah.
the
But
parody,
there are
probably.
Van Helsings.
Very nicely done to take the inspiration of the Belmont, which then inspired you, and take it all the
Right.
way back to square one there. The lead character is, you're able to do gender differences, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that wasn't initially the
Correct.
case. Did that come later?
So during the Kickstarter, we had so many people be like, "Can we play as Lady Drac? Like, oh my God, that would be so amazing." And we were like, "Well, we're a really small studio and that's going to cost a lot. So we're going to have to like do a crazy stretch goal, but like we want to." But you know what? When we didn't hit that crazy stretch goal, we were like, "You know what? We really should be able to let's make this a priority." Like it seemed so important to people. So we did it. We did it anyway. And it was such a great choice because I love playing as we call her Femdrac, but just, as Drac in a beautiful, beautiful lady body.
Yeah.
And the voice actress is incredible too. So I have to plug our crazy voice actor situation for Drac. So for the original Drac, for the male Drac, we were like, okay, we need the sexiest man voice on earth. Like, where can we find the sexiest male voice in history? And I am lucky enough to be friends with a number of romance authors. So I pinged my romance author friends and I was like, hey, who's got like a great sexy voice? And E.L. James, who wrote 50 Shades of Grey, was like, oh, use the guy who's Christian Grey, like Zachary Weber. And I was like, thank you, Erica. Can you get us in touch? We talked to Zach. He is the funniest, most amazing dude. He's hilarious. Like he brings such a dry, amazing humor to Drac, and his voice is ridiculously sexy. So we were like, yay! And his name is Zach, and it rhymes with Drac, and it just works perfectly. So
Amazing. So you are 1 degree of separation from 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, she's a
with
friend
your-
of mine. She's wonderful. Wonderful.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Lady Drac, how did Lady Drac live up to that?
So that was really tough because, Zach has just this quality to his voice, and we really wanted it to have somebody who wasn't doing an imitation, but that had that same vocal quality and resonance, and like, I hate the word because it's so pretentious, but gravitas. We really needed that. And so we listened to a number of auditions, and people were just, they were just trying too hard to be sexy. Like they were trying to make it so seductive. And I'm like, no, it's got to be that kind of like effortless sexy. And I was kind of like, I just want like a straight take on it. Like, just read these lines like you're a badass vampire. Like, like,
Yeah.
and so I decided to look in the audiobook space because I listen to a ton of audiobooks, and that's where Zach is from. And so I had found this narrator, Eva Kaminsky, and I listened to just some of her narration, and I was like, wow, she's got the stuff right there. So I reached out to her agent, and we collaborated, and she's great, and she brings kind of a slightly different energy. So when you play as her, you really do kind of get a different experience. But she mirrors that quality. She's still Drac. She's still Drac, so it's great. It's great.
So much to talk about. I want the listeners to know more about the details of how this isn't just a straight Castlevania clone.
Right.
You've already let us know through talking about these amazing voice actors that it's Drac who's the lead character for
Yes.
those who didn't know. Though there are, as you said, vampire hunters involved. There's Medusa. There's I think a plant. Is there a plant woman?
PSL, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
It's our kinky pumpkin witch. Yeah.
But I also, before we get to that, because that's also something I hope people just Google. but I want to hear it from you too. I want to hear about the story you wrote, of course. But before we started recording, you told me about a great talk you're going to do at PAX
Yes.
East. So for people who there'll still be time after you hear this to go see your talk at PAX East. It's going to be Friday 21st.
Yeah, it'll be the Friday night of PAX. I don't have
Yes.
the calendar in front of me, but it's
Me neither.
7:30 in the Arachnid Theater. And yeah, my talk is called Trust, Lust, and Ust, Writing Effective Romance in Games. And so I basically deconstruct what I believe are the three pillars of an effective relationship, fictionally. Trust, lust, and then the secret ingredient is ust, which is for people who are not fanfic people like me. I've grown up with us. It's unresolved sexual tension. So it's a lot of like what's not there, like the near misses. Not exactly like a Victorian, like, oh, I saw a flash of her ankle, but you know, that kind of that little bit of like they're not quite getting there yet. And you really need to balance it. So every romantic trope has a different balance, right? So if you're doing enemies to lovers, obviously the trust is really low, but you probably have pretty high ust and lust, right? But then if you go from like friends to lovers trope, like the trust is really high and maybe the lust isn't. So you really need to have like a good balance depending on what the trope is. Then you subvert the tropes and it's a whole thing. But it's a really fun presentation because I make it interactive and like I actually put people's responses up on the screen and it's a lot of fun.
That sounds amazingly fun.
Yay.
So I don't know how to make men sexy. I don't get it. I wish I could understand it. I sound like such a boring straight guy, but like I don't get it. And you know, men have often tried to depict men in a sexy way, but oftentimes men will just like draw a guy like posing like how he thinks a sexy woman would pose, and that often doesn't work. So how do you make a man sexy? How do you make that Drac so sexy?
Literally, I was like, I want him to be the Elvis of vampires. Like, I want him to make people claw at themselves. They're so excited by him. Like you see those old videos of people freaking out over Elvis. They're like pulling their hair and like drooling. I want that general, you know.
Yeah.
We spent a really long time working with our artists to capture the essence. I mean, vampires are sexy. Like vampires are sexy.
Yeah.
I grew up kind of like most of my crushes had been vampires straight across the line.
Like
But
pre-Twilight?
oh man, oh yeah, I loved Spike from Buffy.
Oh yeah.
And then I mean True Blood's Eric Northman, and I mean they're
Oh,
just
how
like
could I
the
forget
fat.
him? Yeah.
Oh man, like vampires are so hot. So yeah, we kind of like just wanted to channel that hot vampire Elvis energy.
And it's the
I was like,
effortlessness of it, right? Like when I
yeah,
think Elvis, I think about those True Blood guys. They're horny as hell, but
yeah,
they're like confident and casual about it. Like they're not putting it on you. They're not making it a big deal, but
yeah.
it's still like piping hot. Is that the trick?
Piping. That's what I'm dishing out. Piping hot vampire. That is what's happening.
And I really like that Lady Drac is also not going to be like typical male gaze, but it's not necessarily gaze. It's like the voice, like the Jessica Rabbit
Yeah.
type, just like
No, yeah, she's just really confident and alpha. Like
yeah.
there's no like I'm trying to seduce you. She's like, no, like I am, like she's just large and in charge. She's just amazing. Yeah.
So
And there's
tell us,
also like a little level of sophistication in her voice that Zach doesn't have. So she sounds slightly fancier in some way. I can't, it's an intangible thing.
I can't wait to play it for myself. So tell us a little bit about the story of these
Sure.
Dracs. Well, there's only you never get both Dracs in the same story, right?
No. You're offered. So you start the game as male Drac.
Right.
At some point, very early on in the first 10 minutes, you are allowed to pick your body. And then you can play the rest of the game as whomever you choose. And I should also say, I say Lady Drac or Femme Drac, but that's just verbally. She's just called Drac. In the game, it's just Drac, and there are no pronouns because you can pick whichever Drac you want. And so it's just people talk about Drac and they say Drac.
Right. Drac is Drac,
it's really,
regardless of the body.
So yeah, you had mentioned before, like, how is this not a Castlevania knockoff? It's really just like a loving homage to Castlevania, but it's not Castlevania. It's
Right.
it's our own thing. And of course we have some like little jokes and little nods here or there. But if you're looking for like a straight parody of it, like nuts, that's not what this is. This is our own story. We just started from a place of nostalgia. And the game actually, from a thematic perspective, is very much about nostalgia and letting go. So we kind of like tie a lot of those themes into the story in a kind of meta, interesting way. But basically what it's about is 100 years prior to the start of the game, Drac was defeated by his mortal enemy, the Van Helsing clan. And instead of dusting himself off and getting over it, he brewed and stewed in his castle for 100 years and just let the whole place just kind of like fall in upon himself, just brewed until finally the Grim Reaper calls him for a poker game. And he's like, dude, you got to snap out of it, buddy. Like, get up, get out. Like, we can't do this. And so he sort of gets tricked kind of by the Grim Reaper into doing a reality dating show to get him. I mean, because that's the natural thing. Like, if you're brooding, your best friend puts you on reality dating shows. Like, that's just the logical way of things.
Like, there's TV. They watch TV.
Yeah. And so we have all these crazy TV contrivances in the game, like instead of when you're fast traveling, instead of like a loading screen, you get a confessional. So you'll get like Drac or one of the characters sitting there just kind of dishing, shooting the breeze. And we have like all sorts of TV contrivances, like you get your ratings up, you get rewards for ratings, and yeah.
So you're probably too young for this, Amanda.
I'm in my mid-40s, so no.
I was on a reality show and did confessionals when I was a youth.
My God.
Yeah, when I was 20, I was on Road Rules season 5. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I looked very different then because it was 26 years ago. So I backed the Kickstarter, but I don't think I realized it was also like a reality show.
Oh yeah, it's a reality show.
And that's going to give me
because I feel like that was like around like the Real World time,
yeah,
right?
So I tried out for the Real World Boston, didn't get on, and they put me on Road Rules instead.
Oh, this is just too good.
Yeah. How weird is it that like you made a game about Castlevania and my life kind of by accident?
Do you want to be a DLC character? like what?
Of course, yeah. I would. You could use my likeness free of charge. I'm not hot in the reality TV world anymore. They've been talking about maybe putting me on one of the reunion shows, but enough about me.
That's crazy.
Whoa, that was one of the least cool things for an interviewer to do, is suddenly talk about being on Road Rules 25 years ago. But I did that, and
complaining. I think that is a fun fact that I will stick in my brain forever. I love it. I love it. Now I have to go Google it. That's so good.
I'm sad you'll Google it, but it'll be fun too. It'll be fun, hopefully, for you to see my big hair and my big personality. So back to your game, the important topic at hand.
How dare you?
How is the action that Bill worked on, the cold gameplay combat side of things?
I mean, it's great. It's a really fun action platformer. And basically what you're doing is you're going throughout Transylvania to find the world's sexiest monsters and recruit them to be on the show. So the party castle, Drac's party castle, is like the hub world. And then you go off into the world, get the characters, and they move in. So here's something that I was really adamant about. So I love BioWare games. I love Mass Effect. I love Dragon Age. But I spend 90% of my time in the hub world, like, so either on the ship or at the campfire, just talking to people. Like, I just want to max out every conversation. I want to talk to everybody. I want to romance every single one of them, including Garrus. And so that was my play style. It was like I would bang out like the quests and stuff, but spend most of my time in the hub world. And so the way we did Romancelvania is like, listen, if you're a big narrative person, you have an exhaustive amount of things that you can do inside the castle. But if you're the type that was just like, yeah, speed through the conversations and want to get back into the world, you can do that too. So that's really kind of like the castle is the place where you could spend tons of time, but you don't have to. Like, we have a bar. You can just go to the bar and talk to characters for like ever.
Wow.
We have like 75 dates. We have a ton of narrative. The script I wrote. I single-handedly wrote a 500-page script for this game.
Wow.
A lot. It's a lot, Jonathan.
So I can't. This is, you're not trying to hype it. You're just explaining what it is, and it's
Yeah.
very exciting. I love foregoing or just totally ignoring responsibilities in games. And as you said, just spending time in the hub world, not doing the work part of the game,
Yeah.
and hanging out and seeing what happens. It's so
I mean,
low pressure.
ultimately, like you do, if you want to resolve things for certain characters, like every character has a quest that if you really want to romance them, you have to complete it. So, but if you're just not interested in some characters, you can vote them off, which, I mean, every good reality show has eliminations, am I right? And or you can just befriend them. Like there's a werewolf that is my best friend, Fenton, in the game. Every single time I played, I'm like, I could romance Fenton, but he's such a good friend. We talk about cheese. So
So high trust, low lust,
yeah, low us,
and I guess low
yeah.
ust too.
Yeah, but that's the way I play it. Like he can get very aggressive in a flirty way if you go in that direction.
Wow.
We've had some responses to Fenton that are like, woo. Some people really like Fenton that way, but me, I just want to talk about books and cheese with him. So
And he'll meet you where you're at. He'll go there if
Yeah.
that's what you're putting out for him.
Exactly.
So good. I want you to also just explain Twilight to me. That's inappropriate. This is not the
Twilight?
topic at hand. Yeah. So why didn't she just go with Jacob? Have you read the books?
Seen Edward?
Jacob is
He was
abs.
smoking hot. No, he was smoking hot. Amazing bod. But it's the ust. So can I just actually, I'm going to geek out for a minute. So
Yeah, please.
The fact that Stephanie Meyer wrote it so that they could not even touch created an ust factor that was so through the roof that when she got to the third book and they finally got married and all the fans got was a fade to black, that is what created 50 Shades of Grey, because it was originally Twilight fanfic. And so there was such a big world of Twilight fanfic because everybody wanted to fill in those gaps. What did they do? I want the dirty details, right?
So it was the ust between
Ust, I'm telling you.
Edward and Bella, whereas Jacob, there was such trust. I mean, like ridiculous amounts of trust.
Yeah. See, you get it. You don't even need to go to my talk. You get
it. Well, you've taught me a lot in a very brief amount of time, and I'm very grateful, but I'm confident there's a lot more I have to learn. When is the game coming out?
It is coming out March 7th.
That's
I'm
so
excited.
And where's it coming to? Where's it starting?
It is going to be starting on Steam, Epic Game Store, Xbox Series S and X, and PS5.
That is so many things to. Usually people start with one of those things.
No,
you're starting with like
starting
4.
with many.
Amazing. Wow. That
and
is
more
so
to come.
I want you to. So Castlevania, I was just researching it I write for this magazine, Nintendo Force. So if you guys ever get your game on Switch, I can interview you there too, and you'll be in like a print magazine. It's fun. Yeah. It's like Nintendo Power, except
yes,
a tribute, a living tribute.
Nintendo Power people. Like, so Bill actually, I mean, we collect stuff, and he's got Nintendo Power stacked, to the roof. But his first design doc was he wrote to Nintendo about a sequel to Metroid.
Really?
Invented the spider ball. Like he described it like he was like, this is it. And then he sent it in and Nintendo was like, thanks, but whatever. But then when the game came out and he saw it, he was like, they liked my idea. Like he really thought that like they used it. And he sent in then design docs all the time. And this was back, because we're old, this was back like when you wrote letters, like, and you put it in the mail. And he would receive mail. It was very, very classic.
The magazine I write for, we print children's drawings in print still. And hopefully, do you think the game will ever come out in Nintendo's?
Yes.
Okay, well, in that case, it's a lock. Yeah,
it's a lock.
You'll be interviewed in there if you'd like to be. But what I was going to say is I was writing for Nintendo Force about how this new Dead Cells Castlevania.
Yes.
And Dead Cells, it looks like, has sold between 7 and 11 million copies.
Awesome.
Which is bananas. The whole Castlevania series together apparently hasn't quite sold that much. Like on average, those games sell like 800,000 to 1 million copies.
Buy that.
Isn't that bananas? And of course, Konami is very squirrely with their numbers. I could be inaccurate in those numbers, but no like single Castlevania game has ever sold 7 to 11 million copies.
That's
I think
wild.
the best-selling one is like 2.5 million. But it's clear that making Castlevania type content can make you tons of money. So
yay.
well, that's the hope, and I truly want it to happen for you and your team.
Thank you.
What do you think it is about Castlevania that clearly like everyone knows it, but their games didn't sell that well, but games that are like their games sell super well, like your game? What do you think the magic is in there? This is a weird question. You may not have an answer. But
I don't know, but I do think that there's something about Castlevania that captures the imagination, right? Like there's the whole, like, we all know the Dracula mythos, right? But being able to get into that world, it kind of makes you go on your own little tangents like we did, you know? And so like, what was Dracula doing down here? What are those Salem witches doing there? Like, and we came up with our own, you know, kind of crazy story and take on it. I don't know about the other devs. I just know that, you know, you take inspiration where you can get it. You get those little nuggets and you just go with it. And yeah, I think that Castlevania has always captured my imagination. I nearly flunked out of college when I got my hands on Symphony of the Night. Like, I played it. Diablo 3 and Symphony of the Night ruined my senior year, like ruined. It was a good thing I was an English major, being like, yeah, I've already read that book. It's fine. Like, I'm just going to go home and play some more Diablo 3.
Wow.
Diablo 2, yeah.
I mean, that sounds like an amazing senior year and a scary one. Because like, what if you flunk, but you're having so much fun?
I mean, I wasn't really going to flunk, but you know, like, those games suck you in.
They're big time. Yeah,
Big
Symphony of the Night is endless. Oh, geez, but now you're making a game in the wheelhouse of Symphony of the Night.
I am.
People are going to be wanting the castle to flip upside down.
Yeah.
People are going to be wanting there to be endless secrets to find.
So I think that once people play it, they're going to realize, like I said, it's a love letter to it. It is not a parody or direct ripoff. It's an homage. It's a love letter. It's not a one for one at all, and I wouldn't want it to be, you know. Like, we have our own story to tell, we have our own mechanics that we think are fun, we have our own wacky cast of characters. Like, yes, like you would mention, you know, we have a Medusa, we have the Van Helsings, but like I said, we also have a pumpkin witch. You know, nobody else has curvaceous pumpkins in their game, to my knowledge. I don't know.
And they're suggestive. It's one of the best characters, if I remember them correctly, that sum up the spirit of the game, because it's spooky, it's Halloween-y, pumpkins, but also just so ridiculous. Are there pumpkin breasts?
Oh, yeah.
There are.
And you can assume a pumpkin booty. Like, you don't see it, but you can assume, right? She made of pumpkins. You just got to put two and two together.
You've got to assume. We're almost out of time of this amazing conversation. Amanda, I had so much fun talking to you. Anything you want to leave us with before we sign off?
No, I just hope everybody checks out Romancelvania. It's just a good romp. It's just a good time. Like, I think that it's the hero we need right now. You know, that's all.
I can't wait to play it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amanda is your name, Romancelvania is your game. Go get it.